Okay, my name is Gong. I'm here on behalf of Vector Architects Beijing to share with you guys one of our recent finished projects, a Seashore library. I'm going to start my speech with a short film. So can you play the video? It's actually a library belongs to a community behind, a residential community. But at the same time, it's actually open to the public. Okay, so the first section of my speech, I will show you how the building has been used for the past year. I actually collected some images through the internet by typing the keywords, Seashore Library, just show you how different kinds of people, how they use that space. The library actually opened last May, which is already a year. Right after the opening, there were some Chinese social media to make some report about this building. So all of a sudden, it attracts a lot of people to go there to take the visit of the space. So that's the condition right after the report by medias. As you can see, this library is actually only have 75 or 80 seats, but at that period of time, one day there will be like 2,000 or 3,000 people going there. It's no longer a library anymore, it's more like a train station. But the client, fortunately, they realized that that's not a good way to do it. So they start an online reservation system to control the number of people. So it's working pretty well. The space is back to normal of a reading atmosphere. The rest of the pictures is just showing how different kinds of people use the space. And this is just randomly picked from the internet, all these pictures. It's by regular people. I guess this is regular readers in the space. Sometimes families, some elderly people, as well. Sleepers, children, construction workers nearby, girls, friends, lovers, well, celebrities. Well, this guy at the bottom, he's my idol. He has been the most influential Chinese rock star for the recent 30 years. And the man next to him is the director of the library. Awkward people with awkward shots. Even more awkward. Different kinds of activities. Public lectures, some group discussions, and so forth. Travelers. Well, I guess this is a group of colleagues going there in their graduation day, taking pictures. So this really has been an intriguing experience for me to see such a small space can generate such amount of social energy and social response. It's quite an intriguing experience. So, well, that makes me think, even though our life is more and more digitized, become more and more unreal because of the computer, because of the internet, but I think this kind of real space, this kind of physical space still matters to the regular people's life. I think that's a good thing to know as an architect. So let's come back to the design. The second phase of my speech, I will quickly go through the design process, just let you understand the building more easily. This is the location of the library, which is in the up north in China. It's in the Bohai Bay, 3 hours drive from Beijing. A closer look, the community and the small county nearby. This is the relationship between the library and the residential compound behind. And this will be the master plan for the future of the residential compound. So you can see there will be full of residential housing behind the library. So it's really a community public program. The first day I went to the site. I got up early because I tried to look at the sunrise of the ocean, but unfortunately it's overcast day. But standing in such a kind of environment, facing this piece of so vast ocean, you almost feel the pressure from the nature. Nature is always beautiful, but when you stand in this kind of nature, you almost feel a kind of unsafe psychologically. Some objects actually quite inspiring, scattering around the site. This is a boat used by the fishermen around. And that's the temporary shelter for the fishermen. It's already demolished. But at that day, when I get into the space, it's very interesting because it's so dark. So it seems like everything else get disappeared. Only you and the ocean left, and connected by the small openings in between you. So I think this is a kind of inspiring for our design. That's also a series of photographers taken by a Japanese artist, Hiroshi Samajito. So as you can see, the ocean is something like, the geometry is so simple, this kind of ocean horizon, but because of the time and the weather, it can generate so diversified atmosphere. It becomes alive. So for us, this ocean is almost like a drama, and our space is facing the drama. Design starts with the section. And this is an important one in the schematic phase. The ocean actually is to the east side of the building. So as you can see, the east facade is kind of transparent because we want to allow people to look at the sea. the landscape. But on the west side, it's more solid, visually isolating the space from the future expansion of the community. And this direction has been reinforced by the curve on the roof. We actually leave a slice of horizontal window underneath the bench of the curve because we want to accelerate, or this window is operable. So we want to accelerate the air ventilation inside the space. This building has no air conditioning at all. So the passive airflow is very important to achieve the comfort inside the space, especially for the summertime. So as you can see on the roof, we have a matrix of the ventilation tunnel covered by the sky windows, which is also operable. So we actually create a kind of cross ventilation inside the space. The steps, the floor has 3 steps because we want to allow an unblocked view for the regular readers in the space. Because of the height difference, people won't block each other. They can look straight to the landscape. And on this part, we actually design a row of pivot door, which can rotate to open when the weather allows. Especially in the summertime, this works pretty well to invite the maximum air to flow into the space. Model studies. We use large-scale model to testify the lighting condition. I think this works 10 times better than the computer rendering for us. Sectional model. Plans. So the program actually consists of 4 different functions. The main reading room with 3 level decks, a meditation room, activity room separate by outdoor deck because of the issue of noise, and some supplementary program in the corner here, the first floor, and that's the main entrance sections. This is a wall section of the east facade. We try to keep the middle part as transparent as possible because we want to create this kind of wide open panorama view for the inside space. So we don't want any structure columns to break the view. In order to achieve that, we have to use a sort of like a truss system on top of it to support a roof, because the roof has to span 20 meters in this place. But we don't want to expose the truss because that looks a little bit over-industrial. So we put 2 layers of glass brick wall on both sides to blur the truss visually. And this is translucent. So the translucency will also cast a very unique light ambience for the interior space. Well, construction phase. This is the first mock-up wall. It's a failure, as you can tell. This team has zero experience to work on this kind of projects to do with the exposed concrete, so they just have to learn. We made 3 mock-up walls, and the final piece is good enough for the main building. Well, this is the chart for all the ingredients that we made for the concrete. So if any architects in this room need this ingredients chart, I can provide for free. Foundations. Ruts for pouring the concrete. Very careful treatment for the formwork. We use wood as the main material for the formwork. So this material is kind of alive. It can shrink and expand because of the different humidity and temperature. So the material has to be very carefully treated through the construction process. You can see we always have to brush it by the water and also have to provide this shading on the site. Installation of the formwork. This is just like the section drawing I just showed you, the sketch. This is when they try to make the curved roof. They have to bend the steel rod on the ground. This is the most accurate way to keep the shape as accurate as possible. And then they put this rod to the right place of the building and then cast the concrete. So in this way, the curve will be consistent with the design requirement. Well, same logic when they do the ventilation tunnel, formwork on the ground, and then they put on the building and then pour the concrete. This is a construction team from the same county. Well, the next is the masonry wall of the glass brick. This is the one piece of the glass unit. It's kind of translucent because of the bubbles inside. Well, as you can see, we have to try to keep this wall stable enough to resist the lateral force. So we have to insert a piece of steel rod in every, like this, in every stack of the brick. And the rod will periodically connect it to the truss. So the two pieces of the glass brick wall will work together with the main structure as the entirety to resist the lateral force. Well, this is an important guy. I'm very grateful to him. He's the leader of the construction team. Very important to this project. Okay, so the last part, I just show you a series of pictures about the final status of the building. The west facade, east, the north, entrance. There's a hole in the volume. Before you enter the building, you will see the ocean from this square opening. This is the condition when all the pivot door rotate to open. Lighting from inside. That's the main space. That's when the light can penetrate in the afternoon time. The wind tunnel, actually, the ventilation tunnel also works as the light well. So during the afternoon time, when the sun gets to the right angle, the light will penetrate into the space to cut the circular spot. But it will disappear very fast because the tunnel is kind of deep. That's the roof, the matrix of this ventilation tunnel. That's when all the sky windows are open for the ventilation. View to the ocean. This picture shows you the condition when the sun almost goes down to the sunset time. So the light is very parallel to the ground. So the light could be able to slice into the space underneath the bench through this small gap to cast a very long shadow. It's almost like a 0-degree shadow. See this? That's actually why we pick up the light is the very important theme of this design, because the lighting environment of this site is very primitive. It's very different than the urban condition. It's a meditation room. Texture. There is a concave terrace on top of the meditation room. the deck. This is when you stay in the activity room and looking back to the main room, reading space, activity room. 2 sky windows facing, one is east, one is west. So at some moment of the day, you can see different colors casted by the light because of the direction of the light. As the west facade in the twilight, east facade. Okay, so this is the last picture. I'm ending up my speech. I think this picture tells pretty much about my interpretation about the relationship between architecture and the site. If you look at the picture, as you can imagine, before the stone exists, the water flows slowly and quietly, but you might not be able to perceive it because the surface could be very flat and smooth. Because we put this rock inside the water, so the water starts rippling around the rock. So it's the rock who reveals the flowing of the water. So I think the architecture is just like this piece of rock. Each site has a specific spirit of the place. What architecture can do is just try to discover it and reveal it, and ultimately transform it into something that's perceivable by human body. So I think architecture ultimately is the connection between our human perception, our emotion with the outside world. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.